Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gerhard Center webinar series, The Aftermath of COVID-19, the New Social Impact Ecosystem. As you might know, since we first launched the series in April 2020, and we have been trying to open various discussions and conversations around issues related to the new arrangement of development and social impact. A very important and critical one actually is inclusive business. So today we have very special guest speakers who are hands-on working in inclusive business in our continent, Milka Shtandi and Biljana Dabu from 2Scale. I'll start by introducing Shtandi first. She's the programs manager at 2Scale. Shtandi has extensive experience in sales and distribution to low-income markets in Africa. She has spent over 12 years working with startups and SMEs in the private sector to develop innovative sales and distribution strategies in both rural and urban low-income markets. Biljana Dabu is the marketing and distribution specialist at 2Scale. Biljana is a multicultural marketing and distribution specialist with 6 years of experience in distribution network development, marketing strategies, including implementation and project management. She is an international trade and management graduate from Assas University in France and has been working in Côte d'Ivoire for 5 years. She supports SMEs in Côte d'Ivoire and Egypt for the 2Scale. Welcome, ladies. We are so pleased to have you with us. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Karima. Let me just share my screen.
Okay, perfect.
I hope everybody can see. All right. Good evening, everybody from Nairobi. As she said, my name is Milka Shetandi. I prefer to go by Shetandi. And I guess for the next half hour or so, my colleague and I will tell you a little bit more about our work within 2Scale. But of course, we have to start with our parent organization, which is BoP Inc. And BoP Inc. really stands for BoP Innovation Center. And what we do at BoP Inc. is to help organizations to design and deliver commercially and socially viable business models. I'm a very lucky human because I get to work with a very diverse team of global innovators and entrepreneurs. We have engineers, we have designers, and really we enjoy bridging the gap between private and development sectors. So these are some of the partners that we work with. We work for profit and for nonprofit organizations. And our focus is always low income markets. So any of the work that we do, all of the projects that we work on are around low income markets. And like I said, these are some of the people that we work with. Where are we? As you can see, the deep yellow is where we have local staff and projects. And then the other, that's not so deep yellow, is location of projects. And for about 10 years, we've been making a difference in about 27 countries. Our HQ is in the Netherlands, Utrecht, as you can see the tiny country at the top. Our core expertise as BoP Inc., any of the projects that we work with are always under any of these three. Inclusive innovation. So how do we develop an innovation for low-income markets? Marketing and distribution. How do we market and distribute propositions in low-income markets? And then inclusive business empowerment. How do we gain the right capabilities to become an inclusive business? As we work on these three areas, we have 5 rules as BoP Inc. Always put the consumer first. As you saw, the title of the webinar is BoP markets as drivers for inclusive value chains and business development. So I'll tell you a little bit more about how we do this. Be local and action-oriented, be innovative and agile, make partners dance together. Those partners that I showed you before, sometimes we make sure that if our for-profit and non-profit partners have similarities in what they do, we link them together and we make them dance. And finally, create snowball effects by ensuring a business case. Our approach, put the consumer first. So really, it's about when, where, how, what, and why do our customers want goods and services. Really here, the main point is focusing on the consumer. So we look at their aspirations, their daily life, their social networks, purchasing, really, you know, what's the size of their wallet, who makes the decision at home, who influences their decision, then consuming, overall consumption behavior. Once you explore all of these topics, you know, what's next? Then you start to identify the opportunities within that specific market. So some of the topics to explore there is what can and should we offer to the consumers? When can and should we offer it? Where can and should we offer it? How can and should we position our offer amongst others when you think about competition? And so when you look at those three circles, our very sweet spot is where you combine the consumer needs, wants and aspirations, the market dynamics and competition, and then distribution channels and roles of the actors. Once you have all of those things together, then you create a sweet spot. And that sweet spot is what we use to go into low-income markets. Our approach to changing behavior, we look at these two different strategies. The 5 levers of change, made very famous by Unilever. Like I said, we work with private sector as well. And very simple, whatever it is, whatever message, whatever product, make it understood, make it easy, make it desirable, make it rewarding, make it a habit. So as you can see, there are links to, if you want to learn more, a little bit more about these two strategies, which we use a lot in our work within ToScale and within BoPing. I think you can go onto the link and read more about it. So that's about BoPing. Let's dive into ToScale. Really, ToScale has been championing inclusive agribusiness in Africa since 2012. So this year we'll be celebrating 10 years, and we are currently in phase 2 of ToScale. So the first phase was 5 years. This second phase is also 5 years. And to demystify ToScale, what it really stands for is towards sustainable clusters in agribusiness through learning and entrepreneurship. I hope that's clear. So what is ToScale about? ToScale is one of the largest agribusiness incubators in Africa, if not the largest. And how do we achieve this? We manage a portfolio of public-private partnerships for inclusive agribusiness in agri-food sectors and industries. So generally agribusiness. And we do this by focusing on establishing agribusiness clusters around local business champions. And when we say local business champions, if you look at the image at the bottom of the screen, local business champions could be producer organizations or SMEs. Producer organizations and SMEs, we create clusters around them. And we ensure that whatever produce is produced gets to a processor who creates products for low-income markets. So our program supports these champions to develop BoP products and create the requisite market linkages to ensure affordable and nutritious food products are accessible. So here, I think the main thing is the clusters. When you talk about inclusiveness, when you talk about the clusters, we mean smallholder farmers, input providers, service providers, and of course, you have a processor in there. But in terms of inclusivity, smallholder farmers, and on this other end, low income consumers. And of course, in between, we have women and youth. How ToScale works. Like I said, we work with business champions who are SMEs or producer organizations through public-private partnerships. And we strengthen agribusiness clusters through by collaborating with local business support services. So these local business support services help us to work with clusters. So for example, if it's smallholder farmers, good agricultural practices and things like that. So in the end, whatever produce they have at the end of the harvest is quality products, then they in turn can sell to a processor, which then gets to the low income consumers. So ToScale aims to contribute to food and nutrition security and sustainable and inclusive economic growth and stability in Africa. In other words, private sector development. And of course, I said by way of public-private partnerships. Our aim is to catalyze inclusive and sustainable growth in the agricultural sector, reduce existing hunger and malnutrition through improved access to nutritious food for BoP consumers, creating empowering entrepreneurship and employment opportunities for youth and women, and finally, facilitating ecologically sustainable and productive food systems. So what are our main goals for ToScale? These are the things that we try and achieve through impact. First goal is to improve access to nutritious food for 1 million BoP consumers. So in 40 BoP markets, access to nutritious food products for at least 1 million BoP consumers. The last I checked, we are supporting specifically overall as ToScale just over 60 private-public partnerships. And out of those, 42 are creating or are producing food, nutritious food for low-income markets. We also aim to improve the livelihoods of 750,000 smallholder farmers, of course, with half of them being youth and at least 40, women and 40 being youth. Our other goal is to develop inclusive business with 5,000 MSMEs. And in this way, when you look at different value chains, along the value chains, the opportunities for supportive businesses or, for example, in distribution, the opportunities there for businesses or micro businesses to do distribution. On this other side of the supply side for farming, you have opportunities for also micro businesses, as an example, spray services or input or supply of inputs. And finally, scale over 60 public-private partnerships. So far, I think we are at 62 in terms of the partnerships that we have. And through these partnerships, we aim to have an impact on food security as well as private sector development. The ToScale approach. So while we go about our business at ToScale, we look at 4 pillars: leadership of inclusive business champions to build partnerships, strengthening of agribusiness clusters, value chain strengthening, including BoP markets, institutional or business environment. And our 3 values are commercial viability, empowerment, and ownership. So all of these things that I'm talking about, what we aim to do as ToScale is to support our partners and ensure at the end of it all, after ToScale is over, that these partners, whatever it is we have created along the different value chains, are sustainable, and everyone along the value chain is making their money. We are in the following value chains and countries: dairy and animal products, staple crops, a lot of staple crops there, sorghum, cassava, maize, rice. We're in oilseeds, and in Egypt, we actually are in groundnuts, and we have fresh vegetables, potatoes, chilies, onions, tomatoes, and fresh fruits. As you can see on the map, we have, that's 10 with 2 a different color. So South Sudan and Egypt just recently started. And for those 2 countries, we have pilots running. They're not fully fledged partnerships. They are the newest members to the 8 other 2-Scale countries. So what is the uniqueness of 2-Scale? I'm sure you've come across many programs across the globe. And of course, a lot of similarities in most of them. But for 2-Scale, development additionality, for every euro from the donors, we make sure that it's matched with 2 euros brokered by 2-Scale, 1 each from the private sector and financial intermediaries. We have a very clear focus on BoP consumers. So we focus on low-income markets. That is what we use to create demand for the products that our champions or the processors will produce. And of course, all of that goes back all the way to the smallholder farmer. Local impact. In 2-Scale partnerships, priority is always given to local innovations within our core thematic areas, and we add value that can add value to the inclusive business idea to maximize local impact. We have a Pan-African presence. Since program inception in 2012, 2-Scale has been implemented in 13 countries across Africa, covering nearly 130 partnerships, helping to improve food security and nutrition. And that's in 2-Scale 1 and now 2-Scale 2. And then our technical expertise. So 2-Scale is a consortium. 2-Scale is implemented by IFDC, BoP, and SNV. And each brings to the table valuable sector-specific expertise that jointly contributes to the achievement of desired program objectives. I'm sure after my BoP presentation, you have an idea of what technical expertise BoP brings to the table, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. And of course, bilingual team. Across the 2-Scale team, 90% of implementing staff are Africans, capitalizing on the invaluable expertise for program success. As you will hear later, my colleague has a very nice French accent. So in 2-Scale, we have both English-speaking and French-speaking colleagues across the different countries. And so looking at 2-Scale 1 and taking stock, we realize that there's a resilience in our approach. So from the 2-Scale proof of concept between 2012 and 2018, out of the 53 partnerships, 80% of those supported are still active, and 60% are continuing to expand. And a lot of the market linkages and business best practices are still offering immense value to the enterprises to date. The impact of inclusive business ideas piloted in the proof of concept made them to be good reference points for our phase 2 currently, and nearly 30% of current partnerships are replications from what we did in 2-Scale 1. And despite COVID-19, where a lot of businesses really suffered, none of our current partnerships has closed shop. So we are grateful, and we also see the impact that our support is giving to our partners. And during this time, COVID time, 2-Scale provided technical and financial support to help our SMEs navigate the crisis. So what is the role of BoP in 2-Scale? So we take the lead on the BoP marketing aspects of the program. In each of the 2-Scale countries, we have a BoP marketing specialist. And perhaps this is a moment to invite Biljana to perhaps tell us a little bit more about her role within the project, to give you a deeper understanding of BoPing's role within ToScale. Biljana?
So good evening, everybody. So as Chitandi mentioned, I have a strong French accent, so I think it will be okay for everybody. So as a BoP marketing specialist, me and my colleagues are mainly focused on developing marketing strategies for our partners, targeting the BoP consumers, but we support them to the implementation of these marketing strategies. So we can support them with product developments, with products that are with high nutritional value. We can support them also with the creation of awareness, because this product needs to be known by every consumer. But we also focus on the go-to-market strategies, so which are the right shops or maybe partners for the distribution, such as the distribution network, the point of sales, or the last mile distribution channel and strategy. And at the end, it's important to monitor our activities and to measure the impact, and maybe do some, I would say, adaptation if the strategy needs to be updated. That's mainly what we do.
Thank you, Biljana. Yes, so innovations. We also, we have our team back in the Netherlands and some locally who work on both digital innovations and support the green innovations team with new innovations in the markets and pilots and things like that. We also support the gender work within ToScale. How can we include more women? How can more women be supported in their business? How can we create networks that allow more women to participate? And finally, communication. So all this branding that you can see here, strongly supported by BoPing. So in a way, I'm trying to say that BoPing are very cool people. So how do we get this done? Two ways. We have a team of the innovators, entrepreneurs, engineers, designers who are backstopping our marketing specialists and our other teams within ToScale. And they help to bring freshness, to bring new ideas, and also to scout around for ways we can improve our work. And also we have, in the ToScale countries, we have local staff who are implementing the work. So myself, I'm in Kenya. We have marketing specialists in all of our ToScale countries, except for South Sudan and Egypt, but supported from the other ToScale countries. And also our ToScale communications team is in country. So what is our why? So BoP, if you ask me, is BoP markets are drivers for inclusive value chains and business development. BoP markets provide a very exciting opportunity for commercially viable and inclusive business models. Why? Because of the large populations. As you might know, in most of Africa, about 70 to 80% of the markets are informal. These informal markets, you know, this is where most of the low-income market consumers go to buy their products or to get their services. And when you look at these populations, both urban and rural, they provide volumes for whoever is willing to go the mile and supply them and service them. What does that also mean? These markets are also very good for cash flow. A lot of the SMEs that we work with mostly want to focus on big ticket orders. They want to be on the shelf at the supermarket, but they are missing out on a very large population, which is willing to pay cash, which is very good for their cash flow. As you might know, a lot of SMEs struggle with cash flow. The market that the BoP represents can stimulate producer organizations to work with processing companies which serve these markets and encourage smallholder farmers to invest in their production for the supply of quality raw materials. So if you start to supply these large populations in low-income markets, you in turn create a demand on this supply side. So then smallholder farmers, you know, are encouraged to produce more, to produce quality raw materials. So also at the core of this are commercially driven distribution systems, which fit the local environment and employ people from the BoP, can also be used to reach targeted consumers with affordable and nutritious products. So the opportunity is there, large populations, good cash flow. The demand trickles down to the smallholder farmers where there's demand for more produce. And also on the distribution side, opportunities to distribute through partnering with different retailers along the value chain, along the distribution chain. So how do we do this? We take a very, very consumer-centric approach to what we do. And I'm sure you're asking yourselves, how do we support our partners to market to the BoP? So when I say consumer-centric approach, I mean acceptability, affordability, awareness, availability. BoP markets cannot be serviced like a regular big supermarket. They are quite different. The sizes of their wallets are very small. They are really, they're affected by what is happening around them, the culture. And if they don't know something, more likely they will not go for it. And if they can't walk next to their house to buy it, most likely will not be buying it. And so when we say we take a consumer-centric approach, what do we mean? It means that before we embark on creating products for low-income markets, we do insight studies. And these insight studies are, you know, to get information around, we call them these 4 A's, the acceptability, affordability, awareness, and availability. Once we have information about all the 4 A's, then together with the SMEs, we sit down in strategy workshops and look at, okay, so based on the product or the value chain that we are in, what products are acceptable? What products are in the market? Can we make it affordable? Is it available? Is it a very new product? Or is it something that existed, but we need to improve the nutritional value? And so once we do all of that, then we move to step 2, where we build relevant and innovative products and marketing approaches. So for product development, based on what we get out of the strategy workshops and the insight studies, we come up with innovative products, sometimes not so innovative, but more nutritious than what is in the market. We have a policy where when you look at food and nutrition security, we look at many different aspects. Is the challenge that the product is not available, or is what is available not nutritious enough? And so what is our value add to this specific product? So as an example, we might mix maize flour with cassava flour. So instead of Kenyans making what we call ugali with just maize flour, we can have 70% of it with maize meal and the other 30% with cassava. And just by blending those 2 flours, you create a nutritious ugali. That's just as an example. Then after product development and testing, we go to work on branding and packaging. And for branding and packaging, for me, this is the most interesting part, because you need to understand the taste of low-income consumers. And also you have to look at packaging that's sustainable and affordable, that will not drive up the price. So as an example of some innovative things that we've done around packaging, instead of, for example, working on sachets for cooking oil, we decided to test a dispenser where that low-income consumer can just go to the shop and say, I want for, if they have 50 cents today, they'll get 50 cents worth of cooking oil. If they have $1 tomorrow, they'll get $1 equivalent of cooking oil. And of course, market activations to create awareness and last mile distribution to ensure that once the demand has been created, that the people have somewhere to go and buy. So just a few stories here and there very quickly. In Ghana, we had a business champion who is called Faranaya. They were aggregating sorghum. And what we did is we linked them to a company called B Diet, which does processing. And Faranaya initially was supplying to Guinness, which is a large off-taker. So in a way, from a business perspective, that's not sustainable. And so we found a processor who was already doing some processing for sorghum. And we worked with them to introduce new products into the market, as you can see up there, the sorghum cereal. And then in terms of distribution, there were women who are already doing porridge across the streets. And we worked with those women to distribute or to actually make porridge from the product coming from B Diet. In Kenya, we also have a similar story with sorghum. Didn't realize it was both sorghum. Shalem was also an aggregator, and she was supplying a large off-taker. So what we did is through Scale and the support that we gave her, she was able to start. She was able to start processing products there. So I'll hand over to Biljana to tell you a little bit more about one of her partnerships in Ivory Coast, and also another one. The ones in Egypt. Over to you, Biljana.
Thank you, Chitanzi. So regarding Côte d'Ivoire, we have we say a special partnership because we are working with a rice union. So we are working with 5 rice processors. So I want to share a story with one of them. So it's called Capi. So it's a rice processor based in the center of Côte d'Ivoire. So basically the company buys rice from farmers around 150 kilometers away, then process it, and then sell white rice and byproduct to middle-class consumers, but also low-income consumers. So in the city of Daloa, which is in the center of the country. So we started to work with them in the supply side, but also in the demand side. But we faced a lot of issues. So the main ones were the rice supply disruption. So because between April till July, there is no rice in the market. So it's difficult for the company to process some rice. Then the second one is the factories out of the town. So the consumers, mainly BoP consumers, can't go to the factory to buy rice, whereas local rice is mainly targeting the BoP consumers in Daloa. And the third issue was about the distributors, because most of the distributors are in the city, in the town, and then they come to the factory to buy some rice. And when they come, they're suffering from police rackets, so they stop coming to the factories. This was like a huge difficulty for Capi. And at the end, we saw a difficult profitability for the business champions. So we did some market research, some coaching also, and we had like this workshop to think about what we can change in this company, what we can do. So we started to implement the rice delivery from some distributors, and with 3 months, we saw good results, an increase of sales volumes around 92%. And the second one, how can we improve the profitability? It was by the reduction of expenses, mainly focused on electricity and transport. And regarding the rice supply disruption, so she was looking for some partners, and she's starting a collaboration with a group of women, rice farmers, that were like out of town, but nobody was working with them. So she started to implement a good relationship with the farmers, doing some input support. And this was a main strategy to reduce the supply disruption. And the last one, we started to think about how to increase the income of the company. It was more focused on opening, I would say, a new small processor unit in the city. This was a way to be close to consumers. can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so I would just want to focus on the new unit. So it just opened in October 2021, and it was a way to do like inclusive and sustainable business, because by processing rice from farmers and distributors in the city, it was a way to create new income for the company and to reduce the problem with the profitability. But the second aspect of it, it was linked to food security, because there are like a lot of small process units in the city, but not doing it in the right way. Because when you are buying rice from them, you can find some stones and dust in the rice. This is not good for the health of the consumers. And most of low-income consumers were going to this type of processor. So by opening this new processor unit for CAPI, they were able to offer quality and clean rice for the consumers. So when they started, they were processing 2 tons per week. Now it's up to 10 tons per week. So we will still continue to work on it to develop the, I would say, the communication supports. And we're still hoping to have a lot of impact on this in this activity. So about to scale in Egypt, we are quite new in Egypt. We started last year, so it's a pilot. So for the pilots, our goal is to have some insights about the agribusiness activities in Egypt, to have some key insights and to learn what we can do for the phase 3 if we are developing our activities there. So we are working with 2 business champions who are SMEs. The first one is SFI, which stands for Special Food Industry International. So it's an Egyptian company led by a woman called Dr. Yamna. So they are more involving in farming, but also productions of olives, olive oil, pickles, and pepper. And they are targeting the export markets, so the USA, Europe, and Gulf regions. So the company has a production capacity of 500 tons monthly. So we can say that the company is considered as a key player in North African regions in terms of processing capacity. So the company is in the entire value chain. So beginning from farming, harvesting, processing, and delivery of the final products. So the company is, as I told you, on B2B level, and then try to inform the farmers of the best practices in production, because they need to have a quality product to deliver to their B2B clients. They use also advanced technology for the processing plants, and they target to minimize waste, but also to increase efficiency. About to scale what we do with the team. So as SFI was more focused on olives, we saw with them a need to diversify the production and adapt to climate change. So with that, there is a new strategy to enter in the pepper segment. So all the team is supporting SFI with farmers' capacity building, the introduction of new seeds also, and advanced technology in processing plants. So we have like, I would say, business support services were in the field also to do this capacity building. For SFI, as it's a pilot, we will be just focused on the priority of the company. Even if we saw some opportunities in BoP segment, we prefer to wait and to be more focused on Kernile, the second business champion. Was founded in 2013. So it's an Egyptian Dutch joint venture. So they are quite involved in farming, production of peanuts in Egypt, but also in Africa. They're sourcing peanuts all over the continent. And they have a client base that includes Europe, the Gulf region, Europe also, and Middle East, sorry. For the production capacity, Kernile has a capacity of 35,000 tons per year. So it's considered as the largest player in the Middle East, but also North Africa in terms of processing capacity. As SFI, Kernile is in the entire value chain from farming to harvesting, but also processing and delivery of the final products. So the company needs to ensure that they have highest quality standards. So they play a role in education of partners farmers with the best practices, but also using advanced technology in processing plants for minimize waste and increase efficiency. Kernile is still focused on B2B segments, and they want to change and to enter in the B2C segments. So with Scale, what we do, we will do the capacity building of the farmers, but also support the company to introduce a new seed variety in the market. So this is for the supply side, but regarding the demand side, as Kernile wants to target the local markets, so there is a need to be supported with the low-income consumer strategy by developing a marketing strategy, but also implement this strategy. So as we are new in the market, as Scale in Egypt, but also Kernile needs some insight from a market agency to understand better the market. We conducted a market research. So I will share with you some market insights, which is focused on snacks market. So the first thing is about the global insight. So the market, the global snacking market is forecasted to grow with an average of annual growth of 3.5 till 2026. But we can see also that the healthy snacking market is projected to grow around 4.2% till 2027. The second insight is more about the trend in the market. So we saw that consumers were seeking for nutritional value, flavor differentiation, and also sustainable and responsible practices. And the third insight was on the spending of Egyptians. So they are ready to spend around 40% of their monthly salaries on food and beverage. And we saw that there is an increase on it. So when we had like all this information, we went in the local insights, focusing on two, I would say, products, the peanut butter and the coated peanuts. Regarding the peanut butter, so the most common flavor is plain peanuts, but we saw in the market some differentiation in flavors as honey and cinnamon was present. But there is also some flavors which are more oriented on health. So light peanut butter, but high protein peanut butter. And most of the communication messages were about the product tester, natural peanuts, and oil separation, with a little bit of emphasis on nutritional value. Concerning our second type of product, the peanuts, the coated peanuts, two common flavors can be found in the market, barbecue and cheese. But we can see also smoked chicken and mixed flavors. When I'm talking about mixed flavors, more about spicy products. Egyptians love spicy products, of course, so there is a need for this type of product. And for the communication messages, there were crunchiness and flavors of the product, but also the convenience aspect of the product. And finally, different consumption occasions. So Ramadan, when there is like a football period, like when I was in Egypt 2 weeks ago. This is a must occasion to have some snacks. The third aspect is about the snack distribution. So when you have the product, you need to make it go to the consumers. And what we can notice is the peanut snacks are available in key account outlets, some kiosks, and convenience stores. So this depends on the brand image of the different brands and strategy. Consumers, well, the consumers, what they need, and consumption occasions. To build this market insights, we did a global benchmark. So we had some brands like Frito-Lay. So we expanded on its Nike brands by venturing into nut products such as coated peanuts. So the brands that are more well-known are Doritos, Sarbitas, and Munchies. And you can find also mixed nuts. The second brand, Barcel, has adapted its nut products offering to match its signature spicy flavor profile. The other one, Blue Diamond Almonds, has expanded its product range around almonds with different product derivatives. And Sahale provides a range of nut products with enriched experience through differentiated flavors. So after this landscape, it was important for us to detect the market gaps and opportunities. So we started with the product portfolio, and we noticed that despite the recent growth in the Egyptian market for different health-conscious product categories, there is a lack of expansion into the different peanut categories by player, because they were focused on one or two categories. So what we can see as an opportunity is to provide a synergetic portfolio that can cover different product categories. Regarding the sizing and the pricing, even there is an importance of small sizes in the market, it was difficult to find some small sizes products with I would say with a price point that is very competitive. So the opportunities that we detected is to introduce a high quality coated peanuts at competitive prices. And then when we were looking at perception, we can say that most of the coated peanuts player don't have a strong perception in the market because it's due to the lack of association of the nutritional value of the peanut. So it's important to establish a communication that emphasizes on nutritional value, and which is linked to the consumption occasions. And finally, about distribution, there is a generally low market availability and penetration by players. What we can, I will say, suggest is to establish a strong market presence and increase awareness through the market. So I will share with you some marketing orientation for Kernai with our key learnings with the markets inside. So the first one is about product development. So what can be done in the introduction of new peanut variety with high nutritional value, but also develop different peanut flavors and packaging that meet consumer tastes, as I mentioned earlier with the flavors and the different sizes of the packaging. The second orientation is more about the channels. You can develop two market channels to meet consumers' needs. One focus on middle and upper class consumers, and the second market channel will be with the low income consumers. And finally, distribution is very key in this approach. And what we are thinking about, it's a pilot that can be started in Upper Egypt to get key insights about with the target markets, but also to understand the key distribution players. What do they do? How do they do that? And what we can do together. And we can work also on product perception before going to bigger markets such as Cairo and Alexandria. That's what we talk about with our different partners when I was in Egypt 2 weeks ago. And it was a pleasure to meet everybody and to get some insight from the markets. So for my side, that's it. I don't know, what do you want to share with everybody, Milka? Chitandi, do you want to add some stuff?
Technology. No, nothing to add. I think that you've said everything that we are trying to achieve in Egypt. So I guess we hand it back to Karaman, and if there are any questions from the audience.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's a great presentation and for the great work you do. Before we go to the audience to take questions, I just have a couple of questions that I would like to hear your thoughts on. I want to ask you, since you work with small players and multinationals, as you know, multinationals have a good track record of extractive practices in our continent. They go and they work with local producers and they claim they provide economic empowerment just for integrating the small guys. But at the same time, there is always, you know, an imbalanced, very skewed power dynamics. So I'm really interested to know if you guys work with the small clusters to make sure that they negotiate fair arrangements for themselves and their communities when they engage with multinationals?
That's a very good question. So obviously in the value chains that we work in, our aim is to empower the clusters and of course the other actors within the value chain. And of course, it's always the intention that things are open, things are transparent, but you know, it's a business and sometimes that can be a challenge. But in a lot of the value chains that were, let me not call them grid, but some of the value chains that are not very well established or the different players are very fragmented, we actually conduct value chain analysis where we look at which players are in this value chain, how much is each player making in the value chain. And that allows us to sort of understand what kind of technical support we can give to the clusters or the SME or the distributors that we are working with. So in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that you cannot really control what the big players are going to do, but we can aim to empower and support the smaller players in the value chain, just so that they are able to get the best deal for themselves. And of course, we encourage smallholder farmers. They're not tied to an aggregator or a processor. If they find a better market out there, of course, we are helping them to grow more so that they can make more out of their produce. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much. Also, one other questions, I'm interested to know your thoughts about, you know, the digital transformation, the industrial digital transformation, especially that you work in with agribusiness clusters. Everybody is talking about the opportunities for developing countries to integrate in the global value chains and all these optimistic thoughts. But since you are hands-on in grounds, like you work on grounds with the farmers, do you think that given the digital divide, do we have the proper infrastructure in our continent? I mean, that makes us competitive enough to get into the global value chains, especially in agribusiness, or we should be worried about this? The digital.
Another great question. My response to that question is, we can't, like when you look at Africa, okay, let's give an example. Mobile phones and penetration. How many people have smartphones? Not very many, right?
Yeah.
And even if they do, can they afford connecting to the internet? So I think innovation plays a huge role in how we are able to include or to be included in global value chains. As an example, smartphones might not be available to a lot of people, but feature phones are available. And so you have some organizations that are using USSD or SMS service to, for distribution, or also on the farmer side, perhaps for getting the weather forecast. So I can't say that it's difficult to determine when we'll catch up at that level, but the challenge is on us to be more creative, to be more innovative in how we are tackling some of these gaps and some of these challenges. And only then will that allow us to take part in global value chains. I don't know if Biljana has perhaps one or two examples she can give from her partnerships, or.
Yeah, I agree with you, but what I can add is, I would say that African people are very innovative regarding the digital aspects. So for the e-commerce, for instance, there is a gap with the smartphone, but what they do, people that can buy with the smartphones are then doing the last mile distribution with the project. So there is always a way to go around with some issues that we can face with the technology. So I think that we will find a way to tackle this issue and to go further.
Thank you so much. Okay, and now to the audience, we have the first question from Kutch. I hope my Arabic tongue is not mispronouncing the name. Kutch from South Sudan. Please feel free to unmute yourself and address your question directly to our speakers.
Oh, yes. Thank you for the chance. It's Kuch, sorry for that. And my question is, what are the criteria for somebody to partner with the TwoScale, especially if I'm still in the project stage? Because when you open, I came late, but what I saw was exactly what my project is all about: nutrition. South Sudan is a country that has been suffering from wars and all this time, and there's a lot of there are so many problems, including poor feeding and actually hunger and starvation. So I'm still a student, but I decided to write about this project and how we can address these issues of poor nutrition and feeding. And of course, you need a bigger capacity to do such a thing, but it's still in the project stage of just concept note. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. And we are actually in South Sudan in the maize value chain. What I can say about partnering with us, we partner with already existing SMEs. However, that does not mean that there are no opportunities to partner with people like you who have the same agenda as us, in where we want to improve food and nutrition security. And so it would be nice to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing. And I'm sure there are probably opportunities for us to partner, because along the value chain, there are very many ways that we can all be inclusive in our approach. So I think on the flyer, our contacts are shared. So please feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or anywhere else. and we can take the discussion further. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just want to take your permission, our speakers and the audience, just to extend for 10 more minutes, because we have a couple of questions from the audience. Do you mind staying for 10 more minutes?
That's fine.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Lauren Clark. Lauren, please unmute yourself. And
Hi, so I have a question. Hi, thank you. My question pertains to in your work and how you've been working with, different sectors and small businesses throughout these regions. Have you found more successful in one area, have found some of the methods that you use to vary based on the different countries that you are partnering with? That's my first question. And my second question relates to gender. And I wanted to know if you have found in any of your research there to be any, I don't want to say discrepancies, but any percentages or data that looks at women business owners or women startups in any of these nations, maybe accelerating a little faster or having maybe a larger reach. Just if you could give some information on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your question, Lauren. So I'll answer the first one about the different countries, and I will let Biljana answer the second one because she's also part of our gender work within TwoScale. So each country varies depending on where it is in its development journey. When I look at the countries that we have within TwoScale, allow me to divide them into English-speaking and French-speaking Africa. And I see a lot of similarities within French-speaking countries. A lot of them are behind. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in terms of support, in terms of everything. So some of the things that we work with, for example, our financial inclusion team has to have a completely different strategy for French-speaking Africa than for English-speaking Africa. Another example would be around our gender work. There are more, there's a huge gap in terms of gender, men and women in French-speaking Africa than English-speaking Africa. And also, if I was to look at Ethiopia as an example, the way the country is organized is completely different. The government controls everything. So some of our work is a lot easier in Ethiopia because, you have these consumer associations, farmers are already in some, sort of groups organized. The government actually gives them support. And so when I compare that to the rest of the TwoScale countries, it's completely different. What really that means is that we can't copy and paste what comes from Ethiopia. It means we'll have to look at, okay, what was interesting here? What can inspire us in what we're doing on this side, but we can't really replicate a lot of the work that we do in Ethiopia. Another example is in terms of technology. If you look at, for example, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, they've made huge advancements in terms of technology, internet connectivity and things like that. But when you look at French-speaking Africa, it's the complete opposite. So as part of our work, we try and include digital innovations, whether it's in the farms or even with our partners or even on the distribution angle of our work. And I have to say that in French-speaking Africa, we have the biggest challenge because a lot of the organizations we work with, there's no local support. There's not a lot of, not a lot of people being creative around technology or innovation around agribusiness and what we're doing. So what that means is that there's a lot, it's more challenging to work in those markets, but also means that there's a really big opportunity to have a huge impact. Biljana, maybe you can talk about gender.
Yeah, thank you for the question about the gender. So this is, I will say, a hot topic within Scale. So yeah, we developed an approach, I would say a gender approach to empower women. And we are trying to adapt this approach to different type of organization. If we are talking about women that are leading a SME or micro entrepreneurs, but also farmers. This is not the same way of working, and depending also of the country, you know, Chitandi was talking about the French-speaking country, but the English-speaking country, we are not facing the same challenges. And when we are talking about women, you have to take into account the cultural aspects. So here for us in West Africa, there is a huge difference between the Saharan countries and the country which are in the coast. So you need to take into account a lot of things, but what we are doing within Scale, we are like some materials, but also some activities that we are doing with women. So the main thing is to work on the soft skills, but also in the hard skills. You can't work only on the hard skills without the soft skills, but also you have to work with the community. For instance, in Nigeria, when they're doing some sensitive campaign about women, they are doing some focus group with men to talk about it, because you can't have impact on the community just by working with women. You have to work with men, but also the entire community if you want to have some impact in the field. So I don't know if it's the right answer to your question, Lauren.
No, it's good. It's helpful. I feel like you were reading my mind, because I also had forgot one thing I wanted to ask, and it was about women farmers and the work. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Dr. Ali and then Mustafa. Dr. Ali, please unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm trying. Okay, quickly. BoP is a Dutch company. So when I think scale, the examples you have mentioned is individual company growing. More interested in examples where you are aggregating small farmers into an association or a cooperative. And the Dutch are very good in this. I mean, when you look at many of the cooperatives in the world, the large ones, they are Dutch, and they're not just agriculture. I mean, they even have banks, they even have healthcare that are cooperatives. So I just want to get your feedback about this, because it's a model that is hard to do, but I think once you do it, it really fits the small scale ownerships in most of the farms in Africa. Thank you.
Sorry, just to confirm that I got your question right. Are you asking about how we go about creating cooperatives?
I'm asking, do you also consider, instead of growth by growing an individual company, that you consider growth as aggregating small players into a big cooperative or an association, and then they own common assets? Very similar to the Dutch example. Louisiana Campina, or you talk about the Ocean Spray, the big cranberry producer, Fonterra, which used to be called the New Zealand Dairy Board, for example. There are many examples of large cooperatives, and they cut across everywhere. Thank you.
Okay, clear. So initially when I started, I said that we work with producer organizations or SMEs. And so that means that in some value chains, we work with cooperatives. So as an example, in Kenya, around dairy, we have two partnerships around dairy, and they're both for cooperatives. And so when you look at how clusters are organized, it's in the spirit of cooperatives, because it's about the coming together, right? So when we go into a value chain and a cluster is created, the thinking around the cluster is the same thinking around a cooperative, for example. So let me give you a practical example. In Ghana, for example, we have a business champion called Faranaya, who I talked about earlier, and they are an aggregator. So of course they collect sorghum from different farmers, but the farmers are already organized in a group to make things easier. They already have their own representative. So I guess it's upon them to decide how to formalize this. They are coming together, the farmer group, and they could go the cooperative way depending on the country, or they could just continue doing it informally. Because also within those farmer groups, we have things like village savings and loans associations, where the farmers all together set aside some money and they save together. They can access services or inputs as a group. So in the same spirit of cooperatives, our work with the farmers is inspired by the coming together. So in a way, all round, if there's no cooperative, all round, there's an informal gathering of the farmers, or the informal groups of the farmers. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Mustafa.
Mustafa is our colleague in Egypt.
Oh yeah. Do you still have Mustafa?
I don't see him, so maybe he's having some
Maybe he
trouble.
dropped out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe we lost him. Okay. Thank you so much for this great discussion. We are really happy to have you with us this evening, and we are looking forward to continue the conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you.
You said something about your contacts. I didn't get where can I easily access them, and for the two-scale management. Sorry.
If you go,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if you go to our twoscale.org website, you should be able to get my contacts or any other person.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
And please don't forget to join us on Wednesday, March 2nd, to have a discussion around business and labor rights in the global supply chain. It's a discussion led by Snitcha from, she's the executive director at the Institute for South Asia Studies at US Berkeley. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your evening.